Mercedes is trying their all to close the gap with Ferrari and Red Bull. Toto Wolff frequently proclaimed that it is important their develop keeps on developing their 2022 car as the regulations for 2023 remain more or less the same. The races in Silverstone and Austria gave hope to Mercedes to finally close the gap. According to Andrew Shovlin, Mercedes is only 2 to 3 tenths behind the top teams, and the updates introduced in France should bring that down even further. But did they close the gap? As we have seen during the free practice sessions and the rest of the French Grand Prix, Mercedes was nowhere to be seen. How has it been possible that Mercedes is again so far off the race pace of Red Bull and Mercedes? Why didn't the Mercedes upgrades work? Was Toto Wolff too quick to judge his team to be back at the top of the field? Watch the video till the end to find out. Mercedes was shocked to find out that they are again far off the race pace of Red Bull and Ferrari. The French Grand Prix should have been a potential target for Mercedes to finally win a Grand Prix, but as soon as cars hit the track, it became evident that it was going to be a tough race. Mercedes brought several upgrades to the French Grand Prix to tackle their biggest problems. One of these problems is their reduced top speed in comparison with mainly the Red Bull. On the straights, Mercedes loses out 3 tenths compared to the straight line speed of the Red Bulls. Where Red Bull topped the top speed with 334 km per hour, the Mercedes got stuck at 324 km per hour. So how did Mercedes try to increase their top speed? They introduced a new front wing, which sees 2 tiny holes in the nose of the front wing. These tiny holes should let the airflow come through and reduce drag. Drag happens when air particles get in contact with an object that moves forward. According to Newton's third law of motion, when object A exerts a force on object B, then object B must exert a force of equal magnitude and opposite direction back on object A. To come back to a Formula 1 car, when a Formula 1 car moves forward, it exerts a force on the air particles. The air particles exerts a force of equal magnitude on the Formula 1 car. This force significantly slows down the acceleration of a car the faster it goes. By allowing the air particles to flow through the nose instead of against the nose of the front wing, less force is exerted on the car, and therefore there is less drag. This should allow in higher top speeds. However, as we have seen in the top speed section, Mercedes is still 10 kilometers slower on the straights. But Mercedes brought more upgrades than just a new front wing. The edge of the floor and the front brake duct saw some changes as well. Changing the edge of the floor decreases the local pressure on the floor and improves airflow towards the diffuser. The diffuser sits at the back of the car and is an important part to create rear downforce. The goal of the diffuser is to generate extra downforce by allowing the airflow to increase in speed. The bigger the difference in airflow speed between the bottom part of the diffuser and the top part of the diffuser, the bigger the pressure difference is and the more downforce is created. By changing the angle of the edge of the floor, Mercedes hoped to increase the speed of airflow going towards the diffuser, creating a bigger speed difference and therefore create more downforce. But why is it that if Mercedes brought such great upgrades to track, they are still behind? First, the effect of the upgrades seems to be of minimum influence. The top speed difference is still there. The top speed difference is caused by 2 reasons. One reason is the lack of horsepower of the Mercedes engine compared to the Red Bull powertrain and Ferrari engine. The engine manufacturers had to introduce a new type of fuel this year to comply with the durability goals of F1. This season, the fuel mixture has to contain 10% biocomponents, whereas before it had to be 5.75%. These new fuel mixtures reduce overall engine power by 20 horsepowers. Whereas Ferrari and Red Bull powertrains managed to win back the loss of horsepowers due to a development in fuel, Mercedes still struggles to develop a solution that brings their engines back to pre-2022 power. Currently, the Mercedes power produces 10 horsepower less than the Red Bull and Ferrari engines. Another important reason is the higher drag the Mercedes produces. Mercedes introduced their no side pod idea at the beginning of the season for the sole reason to produce less drag on the straights. However, this idea is slightly more complicated in real life, and we have seen that their no side pod idea doesn't produce less drag than the other teams. All Red Bull-powered and Ferrari-powered cars have higher top speeds than Mercedes, although they all have conventional side pods. Experts agree that Mercedes can still win a lot of drag reduction by improving the back end of the car. Whereas Red Bull has an extremely slim back end, Mercedes, part due to engine size, deals with a wider back end of their cars. This results in higher drag and reduced top speed. George Russell was confident that they were closing in on the top teams during the pre-race press conference. However, what he didn't take into account were the updates brought by Red Bull and Ferrari themselves. The 2022 cars are the first in a generation of new cars, and the development curve is still steep. The more teams learn about their cars, the more effective upgrades they can introduce. Ferrari and Red Bull did just that. What upgrades did they introduce? Red Bull adjusted the structure of their floor to change the direction of the airflow to create more downforce, while keeping the stream of airflow stable. After the Austria tire debacle, Red Bull introduced new top wings behind the rear brakes. This should improve downforce, reduce tire degradation, but shouldn't have any impact on the airflow coming from the bottom wing or from the cooling holes on the brakes. So what did Ferrari do? Ferrari brought an interesting update after the accusations of Toto Wolff that both Ferrari and Red Bull make use of a flexible floor. Ferrari already announced they needed to make adjustments to their floor, and many wonder whether this floor update was a result of that. Ferrari changed the shape of the front and mid part of the floor to change the airflow direction. It is unclear yet whether Ferrari also made their floor stiffer, but it can very well be that this floor update directs the airflow in a different way to reduce the need of a flexible floor plank. It appears that Toto Wolff was a bit too early in his proclamation that they are approaching the speed of the Ferraris and Red Bulls. When we look at the data from the official Formula One website, we see that Mercedes still loses almost 0.4 seconds to Ferrari in the slow-speed corners and about 0.2 seconds in the medium corners. Mercedes is getting almost even with Ferrari in high-speed corners, only to lose 0.2 seconds again on the straights. Experts see that Mercedes had to give up downforce in order to minimize the loss on the straights. However, the reduced amount of downforce led to bigger gaps in the slow and medium-speed corners, where a mixture of mechanical and aerodynamic grip is important. On high speeds, the Venturi effect of the floor is important to get the car through the corners, and the front and rear wing are of less importance in high-speed corners than they were with the previous generation cars. After the French Grand Prix, we can conclude that Toto Wolff was too quick to judge his team to be back at the front of the pack. However, there is still hope, as Mercedes is bringing a significant update to the electric components of their engine, allowing for more horsepowers and an increase in top speed.